Hope everybody had a safe and happy homecoming. If your team lost on homecoming, it wasn't so happy. I know Ken's team won on homecoming, right? The Grambling Tigers won on homecoming. Jared Hoffman said he survived his homecoming.
We beat the big blue today was black and blue.
And Chris Stevens is certainly involved with WNBA. He has some type of ill will toward the referees.
You want to explain that real quick, Chris?
Very quickly, yes. The Minnesota Lynx were jobbed out of the WNBA championship last night. As a Las Vegas Aces fan, it is my sworn duty to hate on the New York Liberty as much as possible. And New York Liberty paid off the referees. So I am conducting an official investigation into those WNBA referees from last night because Nafisa Collier did not go to the free throw line not one time. And that call on Breanna Stewart that got her to the free throw line to tie the game in overtime, Elena Smith didn't touch her with a feather. So, yes, I am investigating the WNBA referees.
Hold on. Before that, though, Chris, she traveled.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. She did the Charleston on her way to the basket. No call.
Look, let me say this. The refs were awful. They absolutely were. But Minnesota really hurt themselves with all them turnovers before the half, and then they let the Liberty hang around in the game after they got up by double digits. They couldn't score down the stretch. But yeah, the refs were awful. That's the story.
Yeah, so
that's definitely a story.
They under investigation over here. Make no mistake about it.
Hey guys, for those of you who are watching us on the social media platforms, on Twitter, on Facebook, as well as on YouTube, if you're not watching us on YouTube, by all means, do us a favor, go to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel and click the like and subscribe button. Go a long ways in supporting the channel. Also, if you like, feel free to make a super chat or a donation by going to hbcusports.com/donate. Or you can zell us at donate@hbcusports.com. And of course, you have the opportunity to become a member, either level 1, level 2, or level 3 member of becoming a member of our club, and be entitled to receive quite a bit of perks that we'll be introducing down the line in the very near future. So by all means, take the moment to support the channel because Kendrick has already threatened me about the possibility of taking some time off, which he hasn't earned, but I already know what that argument is about. It's about pay. So by all means, please. So anyway, on with the show.
I'm gonna bite my tongue on that one for this time.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, but
we just saying.
I understand.
Okay.
I get it.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a fun
Dodgers, baby. Tonight. Dodgers.
Yes, the Dodgers going to the World Series to play the Yankees in the Battle of the Titans, the Fall Classic this weekend.
All right.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about homecoming outcomes, positive and negative. Also going to talk about changing the guard in the SWAC, in the SIAC, and in the CIAA, and whether or not the defending Black college champions have a path to get back to Atlanta despite getting a beatdown put on them by Jackson State over the weekend. About 2 touchdowns. But first, we're going to highlight the players who showed up big time for their ball clubs on Saturday with what we got to call Who Balled Out, a Super Mario Brothers-esque edition of it tonight. And our first athlete is Drayden Ellis, quarterback, Tennessee State. We'll talk about them too later on the show. He had 289 yards passing, 27 rushing yards, and a touchdown in the Tigers' big win at Howard's homecoming on Saturday, a game that Chris Stevens watched very, very closely. So, Chris, what made you pick Drayden Ellis as your player who balled out for this week?
There aren't many quarterbacks better in black college football. I mean, I would probably maybe put David Wright III ahead of Draylon Ellis, but it's closer than people think. He didn't pass for a touchdown, but he kept that Howard defense honest all game long. Just his main man was Karate Brinson, and they were chopping bricks like karate, living like John Gotti out there at Green Stadium in D.C. Just tremendous effort, and he scored the first touchdown. That 27 yards was a broken play that he just took to the left pylon, and Tennessee State never looked back. So, I mean, you need a good quarterback at any level of football. It doesn't matter if it's Pop Warner. I don't even know what they call it Pop Warner anymore. Pop Warner, high school, college, pros, you need a quarterback. And Draylon Ellis, ever since he came from Austin Peay, has given Tennessee State everything they've asked for and then some. So I was just very impressed by his performance, and I feel like this is something that can carry him and that team, if not to the Big South OVC Championship, but at least to the playoffs. So that's why Draylon Ellis was my pick.
Hey, Chris, real quick, can you do me a favor? Tap on your mic.
Got some issues with Chris Mike now. He was just highlighting the great performance of Draylon Ellis, and how this happens.
You just put yourself on mute, Chris.
See, I'm not the only one that happens to now.
Of course I did. Okay, how about now?
There you go. Tap on it. There you go. All right.
All right. I must have been on. I mean, I don't know what the heck happened, but do I have the right? Yeah, I got the right settings on.
You're good. You're good.
All right. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Want to make sure everybody sounds good, can be heard. Cameron Child is very particular about everyone's microphone, so just keep in mind, everybody. Our next player for who balled out was True Thompson, Jackson State defensive lineman. He had 4 total tackles. He had a big sack fumble that led to the game-winning touchdown for Jackson State in their big win over Florida A&M on Saturday. They propelled the Tigers into sole possession in the first place in the SWAC East. True Thompson took advantage of Darrison holding the ball just a little bit too long, and got to the quarterback and caused the game-changing play for their defense to shut out Florida A&M in the second half of their football game to take the win. So True Thompson was the player who balled out this week. Andrew Jones for Grambling State. He had a game-high 12 total tackles, 4.5 of those for loss in the Tigers' homecoming win over UAPB. Ken Rashad, what kind of stood out about Andrew Jones' performance on Saturday?
Well, since you guys get to profile and highlight offensive players who've balled out, that is non-existent in Grambling football right now. So if you notice, last week, who did I profile who balled out? Special teams. And this year, in this week, we are defense is balled out. I told you. Special teams and defense have been the reasons why Grambling is in the very fortunate or unfortunate position that it's currently in. Can't say a damn thing about the offense, but Andrew Jones, my man, has been consistent all year long and is a big factor in the reason why the Grambling defense is what it's been able to do up to this point, and special teams to do up to what they've been able to do up to this point, and the reason why the Tigers are in, I guess, the position that they're in. They're still on the outside looking in, but damn it, we'll take where we are. But Andrew Jones, my man.
Yeah, Mickey Joseph not happy about the quarterback situation for Grambling.
Indeed.
He was not happy today talking about Miles Crawley and that situation with them. So, yeah, Andrew Jones might be getting a lot more love the rest of the season on who balled out.
Yep.
And our final player is Nigel Johnson of Lane College, their quarterback, 246 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns for the Dragons. Jared Hoffman, you survived Bowie State's homecoming and was able to name Mr. Johnson your player who balled out. What stood out about him for you on Saturday?
Well, first of all, I got a rant about homecoming that I got to get off my chest later on, but we're not going to talk about that right now. But the theme for me with the who balled out segment is giving highlight to players who we normally won't talk about, or teams that we normally won't talk about. Last week I had Langston. This week I have Lane. Lane, it's been a rough season for them coming off they snapped a 4-game losing streak. They had some close games that weren't really close games. They looked close if you look at if you look at the final score, but if you actually watch the game, they weren't close games. So they've been having problems finishing games, but this time around, Nigel Johnson put the team on his back, had 4 total touchdowns, and just had a spectacular performance. Shout out to the receiver, his top receiver. Let me find his name. Pitts, Carl Pitts had a big game for them. Had 147 yards. Had one of the 2 I believe both of the touchdowns. If I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Nigel Johnson to me was a guy that I felt like deserves some shine at having a spectacular performance Saturday night against Central State.
Yeah, and that was who bought out. So every week, every Monday, we're going to do this. We're going to highlight some players that stood out on Saturday. Sometimes their team might win, sometimes they may lose, but like we're going to make sure we highlight those players from all across the Black college football spectrum, regardless of the Division I, Division II, or even NAIA. So I'm looking forward to next week's patch of players who we're going to highlight. Now, moving on to the games that were played on Saturday, and the biggest one of all was Jackson State versus peace, my brother. Yeah.
Indeed, peace and Black African power. Power to the people. Right on.
Yeah, so Jackson State was able to come away with a big time win over Florida A&M, winning that game by the score of 35-21 to take sole possession of first place in the SWAC East. So fellas, what do we make of Jackson State's not only win, but their prospects moving forward to take the SWAC East, starting with Chris?
There was a very interesting piece of footage by a Jackson, Mississippi reporter from one of the Tiger players that said, "Don't give TC 2 weeks to prepare. You won't beat him." And lo and behold, this Tiger team has proven that they are the real deal. I mean, granted, this isn't the same Florida A&M they faced each of the last 3 seasons, but Jackson State, before Florida A&M came along, was, one of the top, has always been one of the top teams in SWAC, for crying out loud. I mean, they have guys like Walter Payton and Jackie Slater in the Hall of Fame. So it's not like Jackson State has ever struggled, for respectability or talent, but it feels like this team is, finally coming together. TC is growing into his role as a head coach. And that last fourth quarter, those the final minutes of the fourth quarter were just who wants it more. And it felt like Jackson State just made the bigger plays, forcing 2 fumbles and going in for 2 touchdowns to go from 21-20 down to 35-21 on top. Those are the types of games that championship teams win. And for now, it looks like there's not much standing between Jackson State and a berth in the SWAC championship game. It depends on, what happens, with their game against Alabama State later on down the line. But it feels like Jackson State, it's clearly, the SWAC East is clearly theirs to lose, and definitely credit goes to TC Taylor, his staff, and his players for showing up against a team that has given them fits each of the last 4 years and coming out on top.
Well, I want to say give them fits. Jackson State has beaten Florida A&M 3 times, and the only 3 losses Florida A&M has had in the SWAC since during the conference back in 2021. So Jackson State's kind of owned them since they joined the SWAC. Their lone loss was last season, the Orange Basketball Classic, as we all know. But Jackson State, they played a really solid football game in the second half, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They shut out Florida A&M. It's remarkable they did that, considering that Florida A&M, 3 of their 5 drives they had in the second half, they started either around or in JSU territory, and JSU was able to hold them to no points on all those drives. And the 4th drive obviously was the sack fumble by True Thompson, ended up for a touchdown to win the game for him. But the Tigers showed a lot of resolve. This was a game, you can see it after the game, where TC Taylor knew, like, this was the measuring stick for them. They knew they had to beat them, and he even said as much today. Like, yeah, I was happy because, like, what they did to us last year, they beat us last year. He wanted to get his lick back, and he did. And their defense just was tenacious in the second half. They didn't allow any big plays from FAMU, which relies on big plays, especially in the passing game, so they can't run the ball very well. So kudos to them and their staff for making the adjustments after the first half, where it looked like it was going to be a shootout. in the second half, it turned out not to be. It was a more defensive struggle. And like Chris said, the team that wanted more was going to win the game. And at the end, Jackson State was a team that wanted more and ended up winning this game. Jared, your thoughts on this game and how the Tigers can possibly take advantage of this win and set themselves up to win the SWAC East?
Well, Jackson State needs to be doing this because they got away with one. 4 turnovers in that game. And fortunately for them, they were able to capitalize off of Florida A&M's turnovers better than Florida A&M was able to capitalize off Jackson State's turnovers. If I'm TC Taylor, I'm saying great win, but we got to be cleaner. We have to be cleaner if we want to be able to win. Defense, do what you do what you did in this game, but offense, tighten up. Because that's not a SWAC championship level performance from your offense, committing 4 turnovers. That's not going to happen. I don't care how we look at the SWAC West and how jumbled up it is and teams being inconsistent or whatever the case may be. You're not going to win a SWAC championship. And even if you do win a SWAC championship, you're not going to win a Celebration Bowl with performances like that. So it was a great win for Florida A&M. You know, I've been talking about a lot of times that Florida A&M is a team that can overcome its struggles when they go through their lows. The thing I didn't take into account is this is not the same defense that once was. Yes, they forced 4 turnovers, but they just were not able to overcome what their offense couldn't bring to the table. When your offense is not bringing what you need for them to bring to the table, it makes your job that much harder. And they weren't able to keep up what they were able to do early in the game because their offense couldn't give them anything later in the game. So, yes, this is a great win for Jackson State, and they have a much lighter schedule down the stretch. I still feel like that Alcorn State game is going to be a little bit tougher than people may give them credit for. But the path for Jackson State is it looks pretty clear from what I can see.
You know what? And actually, for Jackson State, the path is pretty clear, at least for the next 3 weeks. I mean, you know, anything can happen, but for whatever reason now, Alabama State is saying yay, you know, because not that they were out of it mathematically, but at least they've got something to play for. And I guess to some degree, A&M, mathematically speaking, but I just don't have a whole lot of belief in A&M. But the SWAC East, I think it's safe to say now, obviously Jackson State is in the driver's seat, but I posed the question during the conference today, is out of the remaining games that Jackson State has left, you know, Alabama State and Alcorn State being the 2 teams that pretty much are in the running, Alcorn State obviously in the SWAC West, which of those 2 games would be the most challenging? And I don't know, man. Jackson State, I think on paper, granted, you don't take anyone for granted. Next 3 weeks, you know, they should get the wins, but that matchup on November 16th, that's going to be one to look out for. FAMU is going to have to bounce back. They play Southern next week, you know, who is in first place in the SWAC West. I mean, oh my God, it's getting good now. It's real juicy. It's real juicy. But props to Jackson State. It's just a matter of, can they continue the momentum? They should. But I think November 16th and November 23rd, those are going to be the 2 days that really that gives us an idea as to whether or not, you know, if Jackson State is like really going to be the dominant team that we think that they currently are. But, you know, there's still a lot of football to be played, but Jackson State has overcome, you know, they've endured. They've been challenged up to this point. And, you know, I mean, if I must admit, you know, they learned some lessons from Daddy, and they made the adjustments, and look at them now.
What did you say?
I said they learned some lessons from Daddy.
You didn't have to ask him to repeat it.
He made one snide comment at the start of the show. I can't let him go with 2 of them.
What snide comment did I make at the start of the show?
Don't worry about it, man. But You're right, Jared. Jackson State has to play better on offense, especially Jacoby Morgan, who had 3 turnovers. And I don't care who you're playing against. You rarely will ever survive a 4 turnover game and come out and win, but they did. So yeah, for me, they should win the next 3. The one at Alabama State scares me because despite the fact the Hornets are starting a wide receiver quarterback, he's getting better every week, it seems like.
Right.
And Alabama State did beat them last year in Jackson.
Yes.
So you can never take that for granted. Alcorn State, we don't know what Alcorn State team we're going to get by season end or from week to week for that matter. Talk about them in a minute. But yeah, like that game was always tough. Being in the in-state rival, and it's going to be at Alcorn State. No longer is this like a neutral site game anymore, only played in Jackson. It's now home and home, and they always play Jackson State tough in Lorman. So, yeah, the final 2 games are really going to decide the East, in my opinion. And which brings me to the next obvious question in that regard about the SWAC East, whether or not FAMU has a path to get to the SWAC championship game or to win the East after they lost to Jackson State. As I said last week, they have been playing on the edge. They have fallen behind these games, were able to somehow come back and run the win. But Saturday, they kind of ran out of luck. They turned the ball over late in the game. It cost them, and they were not able to recover from it. So fellas, does FAMU, despite this loss, still have a shot to win the SWAC East, knowing everything we know about them at this point of the season right now, starting with Chris?
It is a faint prayer, but a prayer nonetheless. Once you get to November, because you got to believe that once you get to November 16th, that Jackson State is going to have taken care of its business and Alabama State is going to have taken care of its business. So you would probably have a 3-way tie. Then you start, working into whatever scenarios the conference has, whether it's head-to-head, points against, better conference record, on and on it goes. So, it's a math problem, and I'm going to be honest with y'all. I was terrible with math in high school. I was terrible with math in college. So I don't know what the heck is going to go on if this ends up in a 3-way tie. But it's a slight chance, but it doesn't look good right now. As Kendrick alluded to, they've been playing, as my grandmother used to say, you play with fire, you get burnt. And they got lit up within the last 4 minutes Saturday. So Israel said they would have to lose Jackson State would have to lose 2 games. Yeah. They would have to lose to not Pine Bluff, excuse me. They would have to lose to Bethune and Alabama State, and I don't see that happening. I don't see them losing to Bethune for starters. So that's a non-starter right there. As for I think what probably hurts FAMU is Helene, because if they had gotten that game in before, instead of just having too much time off, because I think they just had those bye weeks in between games back to back, especially with Helene being unscheduled. I think that hurt them because they were able to beat Alabama A&M, which I think they probably would have. Mm-hmm. They probably would have, been a little less rusty going into the Jackson State game. And I'm quite sure those Rattlers will not use that as an excuse, but I feel like Helene kind of threw them off their game a little bit. So, but as it is right now, it's not looking good for Florida A&M.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Where Israel went, that's exactly where I was going to go. That Jackson State has to lose 2 games, and outside of Alcorn State, I don't see where the other loss comes from. And I don't even think that Jackson State is going to lose to Alcorn. I just think that that's the best chance that Jackson State can lose. But do I think that Bethune-Cookman is going to win? No. Do I think that Arkansas Pine Bluff is going to beat Jackson State? No. Do I think that who else they got? They got Mississippi Valley State. Come on, man. When was the last time Mississippi Valley State beat Jackson State?
They got Alabama State too. That's about the only test.
Oh yeah, Alabama State. And I was going to say Alabama State, but I don't. As good as their wide receiver turned quarterback is playing, he did that against Mississippi Valley State. We saw what Walker Harris did against Mississippi Valley State. He's a good quarterback too, but if you want to have a great day, go against Mississippi Valley State. That you'll have a guaranteed great day. So do I think that he will do that against that Jackson State defense that, although it's not 2022, it's still a very good defense that made plays when they needed to. So am I guaranteed that this wide receiver turned quarterback is going to have a good day against a legit good defense? I don't know. So that's why I didn't bring up Alabama State, because I'm not sure that he can have a good day against that Jackson State defense. The only thing that could help is if that defense turns into offense and they are doing the scoring, because I'm not sure how well that Alabama State offense is going to run against Jackson State. I could be wrong. Who knows? Maybe they'll have it down by then. But I don't see it. It helps that it's in Montgomery, though. So,
yeah, we'll know on Saturday whether or not they got a pass, because they play Southern.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
And Southern put it on Alcorn State, 295 yards rushing in their win on Saturday, and FAMU struggles to stop the run. They're the 9th worst run defense team in the SWAC, 111th in the FCS overall. Jackson State ran on them last week. Southern I know they're itching to do the same thing on Saturday. So yeah, it's going to be tough. We're going to find out a lot about how FAMU bounces back on Saturday. So Ken, your thoughts on this?
You talking about for the game Saturday?
Yeah, it's
a desperation game, and I'm gonna just say this for both teams. Desperation for both teams. And I say that because, and I say disrespect, I'm not trying to throw any shade here. Southern is in a very unique position because it could be argued that they weren't supposed to win that game against Texas Southern, but the border regions blew that, that's beside the point.
The most horrible special teams play.
Yeah. So, look, I mean, hey, things happen, but Southern's in a very unique situation. And I guess my point is that that's the reason why this may likely be the game of the week, because FAMU still has hopes. I mean, they are a legitimate team in the SWAC East. And we knew this going in before the season start. We knew that the game with Jackson State would likely be the game that could potentially determine who the SWAC East representative would be. Granted, there's still a lot of football to play, but asking Jackson State to lose 2 games for the rest of the way, and then FAMU still has to win out. Desperation in that Southern's going to have to win. And that game is in Tallahassee too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Hey man, desperation. I just think that I give the edge to FAMU, but I think Southern is in a desperate situation in which, like I said, they're in a very unique position to be in this situation right now. And had it not been for, knuckleheaded, special plays team against Texas Southern, we wouldn't be having this conversation about the Southern FAMU game, other than the fact that it's just Southern playing at FAMU, and there is a rivalry there. One of the unique things about this particular game is that when you look at all of these HBCU rivalries, historically speaking, there kind of is some bad blood between Southern and FAMU. And the reason why it's so unique is because they're not neighboring states. It's just that there have been some shenanigans that's taken place over the years, especially between the coaches. I don't know if you guys remember the infamous game where Pete Richardson was the coach of Southern, and Billy Joe, I think it was Billy Joe who was the coach at FAMU, and because of the shenanigans of the fans at that time, the SWAC page, and the FAMU and Southern fans were going back and forth. I mean, they was talking all kinds of noise, man. I mean, they were going at it. And just to kind of give you guys some idea just how impactful the SWAC page message board was back in the days of social media 1.0, Pete Richardson pulls up a printed out sheet of the SWAC page message board where literally the fans are going at each other between Southern and FAMU. And Pete Richardson holds this up in a press conference, the sheet up, and he says, somebody's going to get embarrassed. And FAMU flat out mollywop Southern, North, South, East, and West. I forgot I think the score was something like 59. It was something outrageous. And when Pete Richardson said somebody was going to get embarrassed, he did not lie. So So I'm just kind of giving you guys some history as to how significant this game is, because granted, the brands in and of themselves is unique, but there really is there's some shade there. So this is unique, especially when you put in consideration that both teams are in the hunt and they have awful lot to play for. So that even makes it all the more worthwhile.
Yeah, I'm curious to know why Southern would be desperate if they're in first place in the SWAC West. I mean, it's come up with a really big win over a first place team. Why are they desperate?
There's still some issues there. Okay. Like I said, man, this we wouldn't be talking about Southern like this had it not been for what happened in the Texas Southern game. But look, I'm not taking anything away from them. They did what they were supposed to do. It's just that the SWAC West, seriously, is very unpredictable. I don't think that 5 weeks still left in the SWAC West, man. There's still an awful lot of football to play. Alcorn is still in the mix. Who else is Texas Southern is still in the mix. Hell, Grambling is still in the mix. And there's just a lot of uncertainty there. I mean, unlike the SWAC East, where I think right now Jackson State is clearly the best team on paper at the very least. You can't necessarily say that Southern is the absolute best team right now in the SWAC West. I think you can make an argument against that. So I'm just saying.
I watched that game on Saturday. And Noah Biden went out in the fourth quarter. He slid for first down. I don't know if it was a concussion or something else, but he was done. So they brought in Zay T-Set, the redshirt freshman. They did not attempt to pass the rest of the game.
Yep.
So when you don't have trust, I mean, they didn't throw that much when Biden was in there. Quite honestly, yes, Biden threw for a touchdown, but they didn't throw the ball that much. I mean, again, they ran for doggone near 300 yards, and I think that's a testament to how good Southern's big hogs are up front. But if you can't throw the ball, you're not going to get very far. And again, I mean, yes, Florida A&M struggles against the run, but I could tell you this much: Southern's not going to be able to pass against that secondary either. So if FAMU can find a way to muck and mire in the trenches and close those holes, where Kendrick Rhymes doesn't break free for a 51-yard touchdown, where Kobe Dillon doesn't break free for a 40-yard run, then that makes Southern very not even one-dimensional. They might be a quarter-dimensional. Because I mean,
yeah, I was going to say Rhymes is a hero right now.
Yes, yes. So if they can somehow stop Rhymes and Dillon, then yes, FAMU can. I mean, that could be a killer for them. And the crazy thing is Southern does not play another SWAC West game until they play Arkansas Pine Bluff on November 16th. And Pine Bluff is much better than people have given them credit for all year long.
They are.
So this is one of those. This is why Ken Rashad has been touting for Southern to make the
Bayou Classic great again.
Make the Bayou Classic great again. Because if by some strange coincidence that Alcorn State loses another SWAC West game, and then Southern loses to Pine Bluff, then the Saturday after Thanksgiving, the SWAC West could be decided at the Bayou Classic. I mean, it's still a possibility.
Yeah, it is. And I'll take it a step further, and I'll just say this. FAMU, you ain't got a dog in this fight. But if you want to make the Bayou Classic great again, you know what to do this weekend. I ain't too proud to beg shit. Oh, excuse me, I'm just saying. FAMU, if you want to make the Bayou Classic great again, you know what to do. That's all I'll say.
Word to David Ruffin, ain't too proud to beg.
Yeah, I mean, the Bayou Classic could mean something this year for once.
Oh, no, it's going to take a lot. I mean, look, look, Grambling it by all means, man. Like I said, it's only so much you can ask of your defense and your special teams the entire year. All I'm saying is, you better pray we don't get an offense. Because if you do, look out.
And speaking of that, Ken, Mickey Joseph was very candid about the situation with the quarterbacks, particularly Miles Crawley.
Yes, he was.
He was not very happy with the way he played on Saturday. He's been repeating that he needs to be better in the pocket, better with his reads. And I keep going back to this, like, you're an upper-class quarterback. You have offensive coordinator Eric Dooley, who's the quarterback guru. Why is this not working for them?
Well,
and what have you seen? Why is it not working?
I don't know. But if you saw or listened to him during the press conference, if I didn't know any better, it's almost as if he was trying. I don't think this is going to happen, but he almost tried to make it seem as if Miles Crowley doesn't straighten up, he may not start next game. Did you not pick that up? He indicated that he wasn't pleased with either one. And granted, Ashton Fry, he was kind of hard on Ashton Fry, but Ashton Fry has seen limited time up to this point. But if you didn't know any better, it was almost as if he was trying to say that if Miles doesn't straighten up and fly right by the end of this week, we could very well see Ashton Fry starting in that game Saturday against Texas Southern. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if that was just talk, but clearly that the one thing that Mickey Joseph has been consistent about this season so far is the quarterback play. And he went from, we got to keep Miles upright because, or he needs more time. He needs the O-line needs to do a better job of pass protection. He talked about the possibility of a 5, 6, or 7-man front to possibly provide him the necessary protection because, again, Miles needed to stay upright. Well, guess what? Last couple of games, Miles has kind of stayed upright and was just simply making some bad passes. Especially last game. Oh, he made some horrible passes last game, and had nothing to do with had nothing to do with pressure or anything. And so here we are. And, he went to a 2-back quarterback set. There was literally a time during the second half where Miles is in the game, plays over, Ashton Fry comes in the next play and runs a play. And then Ashton Fry comes out and then Miles comes in. I mean, this is literally happening during an actual series. So, like I said, man, I don't think it's going to happen. But the way he was talking during the press conference this morning, it was almost as if he was trying to give you the inclination that if Miles doesn't step up, he could possibly lose the starting position. And I'd be surprised if that happens. But I think to some degree he'd be kind of justified if he does do that. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I would say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Miles Crowley wouldn't start because to me today it sounded like that Mickey Joseph had lost a lot of confidence in Miles Crowley as his quarterback. As evidenced by what you said played out on Saturday, him running him in and out of the game during the second half. You don't do that if you trust your quarterback. And I know he mentioned last week where he wanted to put in Ashton Fry to give the running game element. But Ashton Fry is not a quarterback right now you can win games with.
Right.
You would expect it to be Miles Crowley. But, like, if he can't trust Miles Crowley to play a full game, and he's saying the things he said about Miles Crowley today in the press conference, the leash is very short for him. Yeah. And if he has a bad half this week or a bad game, he may not be long for that position the rest of the season. That's how I see it.
Time will tell. But I'll end with saying this. Miles, look, he really looked like a guy who had some confidence issues, if you would ask me. Given the beating that he had taken early on in first half of the season, he was on his back an awful lot, and he did take some hits, and he kind of had some minor injuries that affected how he threw the ball. I'm not making any excuses, but there has been some improvement in the offensive line play the last couple of games to the extent that, like I said, if you saw the way he played last week. And just some passes, man, that just short hop. I mean, we were like, whoa, where did that come from? It looked as if he had some confidence issues and, fixable. But like I said, given where we are at this point of the season and given that the team, mathematically speaking, is still in and they've still got something to play for, it's going to be an interesting week.
Yeah, keep it up, fam. Brought us to a really nice segue. And we're going to talk about Tennessee State. that has been getting better every single week, which culminated in a big-time win at Howard's homecoming on Saturday. Chris Stevens watched that game pretty closely. We already highlighted their quarterback, Drayden Ellis, who had a big game for the Tigers. So, Chris, how good is Tennessee State, and can they, if they keep it up, make a push for the playoffs?
Well, if you put them in the SWAC or the MEAC right now, they'd be the top team in either one, quite honestly.
Ooh.
That is a doggone good football team. Eddie George has built a nice little reservoir on both sides of the ball. Of course, his son Eric is one of their leading pass rushers. I've already mentioned Draylen Ellis. CJ Evans, their do everything running back. He had a 99-yard punt return kickoff return, that broke Howard's back at the end of the third quarter. This is a really good football team. And it's time for them. I mean, I'm really close. I'm not close friends, but I'm really, cool with a guy on social media who's a TSU alum. And he's like, I got to see them beat Tennessee Martin before I start making playoff predictions. But I think it's time to, that this Tennessee State team is ready. I think they're ready. They've got 4 games left, all in the Big South OVC. They got UT Martin this week. They go to Western Illinois and Gardner-Webb 2 weeks in the middle, and then they have Southeast Missouri, who leads the Big South OVC at Nissan Stadium last weekend of the season. They go 3-1 there. They're a playoff team. 2-2, it gets a little dicey, but 3-1, they're there. But I think this is a team that can go 4-0. They're good on both sides of the ball. They have great special teams play. Offensively, they have 3 different running backs that they can throw at you. They have 4 receivers that can go up and get the ball. And Draylen Ellis is just one of those quarterbacks that is just top of the pops right now. So I feel like Tennessee State has a really good chance to make the playoffs this year. I do.
Yeah, Jared, what makes you with Tennessee State not only just to win the OVC, but possibly compete for a playoff spot? I know they were ranked in today's coaches poll for the first time since 2017, so they're on the up and up from that standpoint.
Yeah, I just think that their offense, led by Draylen Ellis, is playing at a very, very high level. And Draylen Ellis is somebody who is starting to make a push for that Deacon Jones trophy, because David Wright, he's been spectacular through the first half of the season, but right now Draylen Ellis is firing on all cylinders, and he's had multiple great games in a row. And he has a receiver in Karate Benson who has lent support to him and giving him the boost that he needs to take this team over the hump. And of course the defense is playing at a high level as well. So I just think that this is Eddie George is showing that there are certain coaches who are anomalies. There are certain programs who are anomalies. There are certain programs where it hits immediately and you have instant success. But there's a lot of teams that just need slow burns. This is a team that is a slow burn built juggernaut. It took them a while, but they're starting to get it. And those are the ones that last the longest, because that they are dedicated to the process of becoming a contender. And that's what Tennessee State is on. Now, they still got to finish the job. They still got Southeast Missouri, who is currently in first place in the conference for their senior day at the end of the season. But you gotta do the work in between to get to that point. UT Martin is a team that they are tied with for second place in the conference. Well, they technically have a half a game lead over them, but that's a team that you're technically tied with for second place with in the conference. So they're not going to be an easy out. You still have, I believe there's another team that's 2-1, that's 2-1 in the conference that they have to contend with as well. So it's not going to be easy for them going down the stretch, but I like their chances of finishing the job, but they got to do it. They got to do it.
Yeah, Ken. So I know you think highly of Eddie George as a football coach and what he's done in Tennessee State. If they're able to get past UT Martin and SEMO, you think they have a shot to win the conference and move on to have a playoff opportunity?
Yeah, look, the ball is in their court at this point. All they have to do is just finish strong. And at this point, the committee Well, I'm just saying if the season were to end today, there's no reason why you wouldn't give Tennessee State an at-large bid. But so what year is this for Eddie Martin? For Eddie George?
It's year 4.
This is year 4. And I find it fascinating, and Jared indicated that this has been somewhat of a slow burn, because when you put in consideration the dynamics in which the way he was brought in, Eddie George wasn't even looking for a job. He wasn't trying to be a head coach. Eddie George talks about how he noticed that he got a call from Dr. Brenda Glover, who at the time was the president of Tennessee State. And he thought it was just a call. Well, that's Tennessee State probably calling me again, asking me to make a donation. And he picks up the phone, and Dr. Glover shocks the hell out of him and says, "Hey, we want you to be the football coach." And he was like, "What?" And, his wife was like, she said, "Hey, I'm so into you. You got to take that job." And she was like, "Go for it, baby." And he was like, "Baby, I think I'm gonna go for it." And the reason why I say it's significant is because when you put in consideration the dynamics involved in how he got to be the head coach, and then here we are 4 years later, whereas most programs wouldn't have even given him 4 years when you put in consideration how he started, or how the team started. It wasn't. I mean, look. I mean, we mocked him a couple of times based on some of the things that he said. We've given Tennessee State some grief based on some of the decisions that they've made, but look at them now. So look, I'm rooting for them, but there's still a lot of football to be played. And I guess when I look at how the committee is with respect to picking some of these teams, there's no reason to believe or no reason to think that Tennessee State can't get an at-large bid, especially if they finish strong. So, I mean, what are they? Right now, they are what?
6-2.
6-2? I mean, I think realistically they could lose one game along the way, and I think they can still make a strong case for getting in. So no, I think they're on the right path, and I can only hope that they continue their winning ways the rest of the way.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you mentioned Cam, like the way in which he was brought in to NC State. You think about like that's his name and what it goes along with that, and the expectations that are normally placed on a coach like that. For Tennessee State to have the patience to understand, like, okay, this might take like a couple of years for them to be right, and now you're starting to see that fruit starting to bear out, and so like we're all for Tennessee State to do good, man, because for the Tigers fans, it's been a long time coming since they've been in this position. So hoping they can pass these next few tests to make their resume pretty clear that they deserve to be in the postseason. And as far as that goes, the opposite of that is North Carolina A&T, which took one on the chin, the greatest blowout on earth.
Oh, did
on Saturday against Hampton.
No, you didn't. Oh, shame on you.
59-17 on homecoming.
BJ Jones had the best one. He said it was the greatest home going on earth.
Yeah, it was that too, definitely.
G-Ho.
It was one of the worst homecoming losses they ever had at North Carolina A&T. And as a result, Vincent Brown, the man pictured here, that second-year head coach, he was asked during his press conference today whether or not he thought that he was the man for the job, and gave a one-word answer. He said, absolutely. Paused for a minute, then walked off the podium. But his athletic director, Earl Hinton, who was in the press conference with him, said, yeah, he's the guy. But they've been 2-16 since he took over as head coach, and they hadn't gotten any better. Like, it seemed like they're getting worse and worse. And the funny thing I found out about listening to his press conference today was he made mention, well, we were only down 14 points in the fourth quarter, and I felt like we had the offensive firepower to come back and tie the game. I'm like, what? That's the bright
comedy.
side?
That's comedy. Come on, man. Hold on. Can
go
I
watch the press conference on YouTube today. Like, he was pretty upbeat for a team only won one game all season long. And he says not making any coaching changes. Last year he fired offensive coordinator, hired a new one, and they still at times struggle to score. They struggle to move the ball. He's going to stay the course, he said. He says the coaches hadn't forgot how to coach. We believe in what they're doing. The players will still have high morale. But I'm like, bro, like losing by that many points on homecoming in front of everybody, that's got to be demoralizing. So if Vincent Brown doesn't lose his job this season, as we said with FAMU, is there a pathway for this program to get better, or are they going to stay the same as long as he's here? Starting with Jared.
First of all, this is for the people who keep saying they need to go back to the MEAC. North Carolina A&T has played 2 games against MEAC teams and 1 against Hampton, who they just played, who is a former MEAC team.
Okay, yeah.
Guess how many points they have given up in those 3 games? Just shout out a number. Everybody just shout out a number, please.
176.
80.
Ken said 80. Kendrick said
$1.
Oh, he's going for right price. Right. I said 145.
Sure, and Chris said
145.
They've given up 170 points.
Sheesh.
Dang.
Good God.
They have lost by an average of over 35 points per game. So for all y'all that's saying they need to go back to the MEAC, that's not the problem.
Yeah, no, that's right.
That is not the problem. We were at the point of they need to go back to the MEAC in 2021 when they went 5-6. That's not this point. That's not where we're at right here. This is a up top problem. This is an up top problem. This locker room, the players in this locker room are not good enough. And it is because the people who are at the front office, they did not treat these athletes the way they were supposed to be treated, which caused a bunch of them to enter the transfer portal in droves. They need some milk.
They need some muscle milk.
They need anything with protein, give it to them. They need chicken, beef, pork, all that. They need an injection of something into their program because their time in the MEAC and now it's night and day. And I know that goes without saying, but they just have no continuity. And they have a coach who is, with all due respect to you, Mr. Brown, sir, I don't know you personally, but if you think that you are the right person for the job, I'm gonna just leave it at that. I don't know how to finish that. I don't know how to finish that without being insulting. But no, maybe you are the right person, but you have not been given the right conditions to be successful in this position. And I don't know who needs to go, but somebody got to go, or somebody got to change up their mindset, because this is not a formula to be a contender this year, next year, in the next 5 years, or in the next 10 years. That I don't know what else. I don't know what you can look how you can look at what North Carolina A&T has looked like this year and say, "Oh, we're going in the right direction." There's no way a sensible person can do that.
I thought they pulled the trigger on Sam Washington a little bit too soon, and I wonder if they stuck with Sam Washington, if they be in the same situation right now.
They fired him a day after he almost won
the Big South.
The Big
I'll
South.
Finish
Right.
I'll finish this.
Right.
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
And that I
Big
just
South.
Oh man, we got internet problems across the country, man.
Anyway, no, but I can't. Every single time I look at an A&T score and I see lopsidedness, I think about my man Sam Washington. You know, and granted, Sam Washington got the keys to from it was Broadway who gave him keys to the Lamborghini, and he was doing well. You know. But look at him now, man.
That Lamborghini then turned into a Ford Fairmont.
What do you do? you know what? There's a part of me. I want to. Do I want to feel bad? Do we want to feel bad for A&T?
No.
I do.
You feel
Honestly,
bad for A&T?
I'll tell you why. Because when I was a student reporter, again, true journalism stories with Chris Stevens. Y'all might need to let me do this as a segment on this particular YouTube channel, but that's another story for another day. So 2004. 2004. Delaware State had lost their first 4 games before upsetting Hampton, who was ranked 17th in the country, and then A&T comes into a Memorial Stadium the next weekend. So you figure, as bad as DSU has been, and A&T had won the MEAC the year before, 2003. So you figure that, okay, this Hornet magical mystery ride of 1 week is going to come to an end. I think we won that game 45-6. And this was, and I'm like, A&T losing to us?
Yeah.
Wow. But stranger things have happened. I mean, as a WSU Ram Nation alluded to, they did lose 27 straight in the MEAC at one point. And DSU, getting right with them in the mid 2000s was a part of that streak. So, I mean, A&T is just one of those programs that's just historically been great, and just to see them in such a state of disrepair and disregard from the higher ups is just totally concerning at this point. And I just don't know what it's going to take. And yeah, I mean, Vincent Brown, he played at Mississippi Valley State, so I mean, he knows what it's like to be in a situation where you're trying to, feed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 2 loaves of bread or whatever. But this is A&T. They should have a little more fish. They should have a few more loaves of bread than they have at this point in time. And everybody's just struggling right now. So
Someone said it's time to move to homecoming to track season.
Jesus. Oh my God.
Wow. Now that's
cold-blooded. But yeah, I mean, I feel bad for A&T. I mean, and in this conference, I mean, granted, UD's leaving, Richmond's leaving, so it's not like it's going to be as formidable as the Coastal used to be, but it's still going to be an uphill climb. I mean, Hampton is celebrating because they know this is probably going to be the last game they win this season. So, I mean, the Coastal is a whole different ball game than the MEAC or even the Big South, for crying out loud. So, I do feel bad for A&T, and I do hope they get it together at some point.
The reason why
it's not going to happen anytime soon.
The reason why I pose that question is because there's a part of me, man, that just, because we give them a lot of stuff, them and Hampton, for, leaving the way they did and making the decisions that they make. And there's a part of me that kind of wants to be wrong, because I'm thinking, you know what, these are leaders, these are higher ups, these are administrators who are supposedly experts in their field. Maybe they know something we don't. And that some way, somehow they're going to prove us wrong. It just hadn't happened yet. And when stuff like this happens, man, I guess, it just, the MEAC wasn't good enough for you. And then on top of the Big South wasn't good enough for you. And now look at you now. 5 foot nothing. 100 and nothing.
The only people I feel sorry for are the athletes.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that have been subjected to this. You know what I mean? I feel sorry for Jermaine Martin, who I can only imagine is laughing to the bank right now. Because he has been on North Carolina A&T administration's head for months, if not years. Ever since they got rid of, like you said, Sam Washington, ever since they got rid of him, he has been on their heads about all the mistakes that they've been making. So those are the only people I really feel bad for, is the students, the athletes, the alumni. Those are the only people I really feel sorry for. The administration, they brought this on themselves. They didn't give this team a chance to be successful. You had just come off. Now, granted, Bashal Tootin is showing out in Virginia Tech. He was leaving no matter what, as WSSU Ram Nation pointed out. Bashal Tootin was gone no matter what. You probably could have retained the majority of those guys who entered the transfer portal after you fired Sam Washington. You probably could have retained those guys. But you didn't give yourself a chance to run this team back, especially since the running back you have now is actually pretty good and probably would have worked out had you been able to keep him. I mean, keep the rest of the team together. Just insert the running back you have now into that team. You probably would have been better off if you had kept Sam Washington. But you didn't give this team a chance to do anything. So for the people that's saying just go back to the MEAC, this is a bigger problem than just leaving the MEAC and going against tougher teams. This team wouldn't be competitive in the MEAC, the Big South, the OVC. Name a conference in the
CIAA.
Oh, I was going to say FCS, but hey, the CIAA, the SIAC, they wouldn't be good in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, and they don't even have football. I'm joking. Just joking. I'm joking. But look, they just got to clean it up from an administration standpoint, because, and I really feel bad for Karan Prunty, because he's a guy that had legit NFL eyes on him. He was a guy that if he had a big season, he could have, his stock could have skyrocketed and potentially gotten a training camp invite that could have parlayed into a undrafted free agent signing. But as bad as this team is, how much film can you possibly get? Especially when you don't have people throwing to your side, so you don't have a chance to show off your skill set. So
go ahead, Jared. I'm sorry.
That was it.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, now this is A&T schedule the rest of the way. Campbell, William and Mary, Villanova, Towson, and Elon. You guys see a win anywhere in there?
Mm-hmm.
Towson's their best shot, because Towson is just but other than that, no. That Villanova game might be nastier than what Central did to them, quite honest.
No chance against Campbell.
No. No.
Oh my God.
No.
And Campbell's not especially good. I mean,
that's my point.
DSU hung 41 on them,
right?
And Central beat them into the turf. That's just how bad A&T is at this point.
Wow, man.
Maybe next year's homecoming will be a little bit more make the homecoming great again for North Carolina A&T. How about that? Instead of the Bayou Classic.
They might need to schedule VUL at this point.
Lord, I was just thinking. I swear, I was just thinking that. I promise you, I was just thinking that. That's the only way they can make homecoming great again. Schedule VUL or schedule Lincoln, California. That's it.
Wow.
And so our final segment of the show, say the best for last, get into Division II football and talk about win by just celebrated. Big win by Miles College over Clark Atlanta. They knocked their block off on Saturday. Kind of unexpected to me, at least. But that they knocked their block off, take control of that division. So, Jerry, you were watching this game intensely. What did you make of the way Miles played and dispatched Clark Atlanta on Saturday?
Look, if you just look at the way that both teams were trending, with Miles and that defense going up and that Clark Atlanta offense starting to get a bit stagnant, this isn't surprising to me. This isn't surprising to me. I said it on the show last week. You have to win at the line of scrimmage. You have to be aware that this defense is going to come after you. Now, they only gave up 2 sacks. Great. But you've turned the ball over way too much. You turned the ball over way too much, and you started to get cooking late. You can't do that against a great defense like Miles. This Miles team is in rare air right now. And now Clark Atlanta has put themselves in a situation where they're well behind the 8 ball, and too much has to go right for them to even have a chance, because Fort Valley State still only has 1 loss in conference. Albany State still only has 1 loss in conference. And I'm trying to think of other teams that there's like 1 or 2 other teams who still only have 1 loss in conference. So you're at the point where you're fighting to keep your head above water. The only saving grace is that they have a head-to-head win against Fort Valley State. So they have to hope that Fort Valley State beats Albany State and that they're able to win out. and that they're able to take that spot. But Albany State is not going to go quietly. So it's a tough situation for Clark Atlanta. But to give praise to Miles real quick, their offense is stepped up in a big way as well. You know, they got great contributions for Javante Leatherwood, scored 2 rushing touchdowns, only had 6 attempts, but had 83 yards. You know, the passing game wasn't as, you know, successful as it was last week for Khalil Anglin, but it still produced well enough and was efficient enough to be able to, you know, get the win. And that's another thing. Clark Atlanta gets no pressure. They get no pressure on the defensive end. There's no pressure on you whatsoever. And they're not a team that is great at generating stops. So when you have that recipe with your offense being inconsistent and your defense not being able to generate stops, and you have you're going against a defense that gets pressure and generates stops, that's not the recipe for victory. But this Miles team, they're the real deal. They're the real deal. And I don't know if I see any other team knocking them off. And they're by a wide margin, the clear favorites to win the SIAC for me.
Yeah, and I think we're waiting for Kendrick to come back, but if I'll just jump in. Clark Atlanta has Florida A&M syndrome. They wait too late to get started. And just like Florida A&M, it cost them this week. It cost Clark against Savannah State a couple weeks ago, and it cost them against Miles this week because Miles is Miles is obviously pardon the pun, Miles better football team than Savannah State.
And it almost happened against Lane too.
Yes. So they spent. I mean, we should be happy that Clark Atlanta is going to finish with their first winning record in 16 years. That's a bonus. But I think we all may have jumped the gun with regards to anointing them as a SIAC contender because Miles was always going to be in that conversation. So was Fort Valley, even though they lost to Clark State. So I think the other one loss team in the conference, I want to say it might be Benedict. I'm not sure, but either way, Clark Atlanta is definitely behind the 8 ball right now. So, and they do have Albany State coming up, so that is a chance for them. But if they play like they did in Miles, they're going to get their, Albany State's going to bick their behinds as well on that red turf. So, I mean, it's just literally, Clark has to figure out what they're going to do on the defensive end and how they can get faster starts. Because if they just keep falling behind, they just don't have the propensity to make up those deficits as we saw this past weekend.
Yeah, also staying in Division 2, Johnson C. Smith stayed unbeaten. They had to survive their homecoming this past weekend. And Winston-Salem State picked up a big win too. So how are we going to handicap the CIAA as it gets late in that season for that conference?
So this weekend is going to be crucial for Johnson C. Smith because they have Winston-Salem State. Winston-Salem State has 1 loss, and then obviously Johnson C. Smith is the only undefeated team overall in Black college football, also including conference record. So Johnson C. Smith wins this game, they're virtually in the CIAA championship game because they still have Fayetteville State, they still have Livingstone after this game this upcoming week. So, and we've seen that this Fayetteville State team is not the same team that made it to 7 straight CIAA championship games. At Livingstone, they shot themselves in the foot against Winston-Salem State. So those 2 games look like wins. But if Winston-Salem State is able to knock off Johnson C. Smith, and I think they are very capable of doing so because they have an incredible running game. They have a very good defense who is able to generate pressure and get stops. They have a quarterback who is able to manage the game and not make big mistakes, even though he did have 2 interceptions against Livingstone. But anyway, I think that if Winston-Salem State plays a clean game and they're able to stay in it, Johnson C. Smith could be in trouble. But I think that right now, Johnson C. Smith is clicking. They have everything that you need, to be a championship contender. They have a championship caliber defense. They have an offense that can match the defense's energy and be able to give them some time on the sideline to catch their breath, and so that when they come in the game, they're able to make an impact. So I think that whatever the winner between Johnson C. Smith and WSSU, that will be the determining factor for who is one of the two teams that represents the CIAA, who is represented in the CIAA championship. Because the only other consequential game coming down the stretch that I see is Virginia Union and Virginia State. If Virginia Union beats Virginia State, they're in it. They don't even have to beat Virginia State, because Virginia State is like 3-2 or 3-1 or 3-2, something like that in conference play. So they're not in a position to be in contention for the CIAA anyway. Virginia Union has a softball schedule for the rest of the way. This is the last real tough game that I see for Johnson C. Smith. So for all intents and purposes, it's probably going to be Johnson C. Smith and Virginia Union in the CIAA championship game.
Yeah, Chris, your thoughts on this? Like, is the CIAA going to play out just the way Jared described, or are there going to be some surprises along the way?
I can tell you now, if Winston-Salem State pulls it off, then we are in for one unique log jam, because as a WSSU Nate Ram Nation points out, Virginia State's loss to the Rams didn't count in the conference standing, so Virginia State is 3-1. So they still have a say in this. Virginia Union obviously still has a say in this. And if Winston-Salem State, forces that would be I believe a 5-way tie for first place in the CIAA. So that means the last 2 weeks of the regular season would just be absolute chaos, so, but one thing but they have to get there first. And Winston has the offense to really make Johnson C. Smith's defense work. I mean, yeah, we said that about Virginia Union. We said that about Virginia State. We could have even said it about Shaw, to be quite honest, but it feels like that Winston-Salem State, with Dalen Lee and Trayvon Hester in that quarterback running back role, have just, risen to the occasion every time they've been asked. And at Livingstone last weekend was no different. So I'm sure Maurice Flowers is going to have Johnson C. Smith ready. I mean, we keep waiting for the other shoe to drop for Johnson C. Smith, and it hasn't dropped yet. But that's going to be a tremendous game on Saturday. That honestly might be the game of the week. I know Southern and Florida A&M is going to have a lot of, eyes on it, but I feel like for just the purity of Black college football and what the CIAA represents, that Winston-Salem State Johnson C. Smith game is going to be the one that everybody should have their eye on.
My eyes will be on it. So that's definitely my game of the weekend.
So you're not saying the Bowie State game, the game of the week?
Look, my dogs, we got a big win against Bluefield State, but we are in a state of rebuilding. We're in a state of trying to find our identity after Big Damo left. Shout out to Big Damo too. I just saw him this weekend. He was at the game. Yeah, they're trying to find what they are good at. I don't believe that they know what they are good at. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. I don't know how in God's name they beat Livingstone, but they just need to find what it is that they're good at and just do it. They just seem like a team that whatever works that day, they're going to do that. And there's days that nothing works and they're just like, let's just get to the finish line. That's the vibe that I get when I watch them, so.
Wow. That stat in the chat is very interesting, that Johnson C. Smith hasn't beaten Winston-Salem State since 1976.
Is that right?
That's crazy.
Wow.
That's a long time, man.
That's a long time.
Chris wasn't even born yet. That's how long it was.
Nope.
I was a little kid.
Winston-Salem State lost last year. They lost to him last year.
Okay.
Oh, he meant in Winston. So
in
in
Winston.
Winston. Oh, okay.
Winston.
All right.
So it's
Yeah,
in
Winston.
Winston.
Yeah, in Winston.
okay, so that
I was
that
about to say that's crazy. If they
well,
have
that does
Winston
sound
on.
more believable because I mean, Bowman Gray has been a nightmare for anybody that's been in there. So it wouldn't surprise me if Johnson C. Smith had
It's a
that
tough
much.
place to play, man. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me that hadn't won right there.
I mean, but
So
the way
Ken said a thing. You said, "Oh, go ahead, Chris."
Sorry.
I was gonna say the way this C. Smith, it just feels like a season for breaking generational curses. So who knows?
That's definitely going to be a good game, though. I can't wait to watch that one. But yeah, like we'll see if they can break that streak in Winston. From this weekend, sure. So Ken said a thing you say at the end of the show to let people know how to find us, how to donate money to us to pay your salary.
You know what? Before I go, I have to address this. My man EA. He said, just joining, highly irritated if you thought our former AD had fireworks. If we don't win Saturday and the rest of the season, that's going to look minuscule facts. Now, those are your words, not mine. But EA, let's put all this stuff aside, man. Team Tiffany, team not Tiffany, whatever the case may be. But look, man, you need help there in FAMU. And my Tigers need help in Grambling, okay? So how about we just come together and do what we can to make the Bayou Classic great again, okay? Y'all got Southern on Saturday, all right? Now, I asked Southern to do the damn thing last week, and I said, look, you Jags, if you want to make the Bayou Classic great again, you got to beat Alcorn, and they did. But I need you FAMU folks to step in and make the Bayou Classic great again, because there's a stench with them Jaguars, I'm telling you. And they may be bringing it to Tallahassee. The stench never left. It's just that Alcorn stench was just a little stronger. Okay? Believe me, I know. Anyway. I just need you guys to take care of business on Saturday, okay? Give Southern that loss. Give yourself a fighting chance to win the East. I doubt you make it. But I'm just saying. But give yourself a chance, and let's do what we can. Let's make the Florida Classic great again, and let's make the Bayou Classic great again. Brother, we can do this, okay? We're in this together, all right? Tiffany Sykes, we're not going to change our minds on that, but look, this is something greater than Tiffany. This is your Rattlers, my Tigers, the East and the West, okay? We're looking for common ground here, all right? So, anyway. Support the channel, okay? We have interesting conversations like this. If you want to become a level 1, a level 2, a level 3 supporter, look, man, by all means, and I'm dead serious about this, guys. Support the channel, okay? We joke all the time about cost and salaries. Look, these guys got to get paid, man, and sometimes it's not an easy task, okay? So bless us if you would. Go to hbcusports.com/donate. And if you like, by all means, feel free to Zelle your donation by Zelling us at donate@hbcusports.com. Until next time. He's Chris Stevens. He's Kendrick Marshall. He's Jared Hoffman. I'm Ken Rashad. We will see you guys next time. God bless you.